Homan is the former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE. That's an agency that has basically been put almost out of business in the last few weeks since the Biden administration took office, and they're just prohibiting ICE from doing their duties under the federal laws, and that's dealing with mostly criminal illegal aliens. And the Democrats don't want to do anything about this problem. And Tom Homan, we wanted to discuss this with him. Thanks for being with us, Tom Homan, here on the Howie Carr Show.
Thanks for having me.
How bad is the situation now under these new executive orders?
Well, I don't see it getting any worse. I mean, this is the worst I've seen it. And I did the job for almost 35 years, and I've never seen it this bad. This is the most anti-enforcement, pro-open border agenda I've ever seen. And they're not hiding it. They're coming with a plan, and they're pushing forward. So I think this country's in trouble. And I wrote an op-ed 7 months ago on Fox News saying if Joe Biden became president, we lose the border. And it's starting right now. The surge is already here. No one's talking about it. 4,000 a day are coming across that border. Border Patrol's catching about 3,500. They figure between 500 and 600 gotaways. The ones they are catching are being released into the United States. Family units being released in the United States with no COVID tests. They're being OR'd, which means they get to their destinations. They'll file for work authorization while they wait their immigration hearing in 4 or 5 years, and if they ever do show up. So not only is there a pandemic, this is causing the rise in pandemic, it's also going to cause the scarce job market. Middle income Americans have to compete with illegal aliens for jobs where they'll work for half as much. So this is the perfect storm. The border, as soon as Mexico stops taking the Title 42 holds, we're going to lose the border. The border control is going to be in utter chaos.
And we cut off the aid that was going to the Central American countries to help them keep these people who are future illegal aliens, future welfare dependent, non-English speaking, disease-ridden foreigners in our midst in their own home countries. Why is the Biden administration doing any of this? It's weakening the country and it's hurting the American citizen, is it not? What is the upside to this new policy?
The upside is something no one wants to talk about. The upside is, what did you do the third week in office? You overturned the census rule. Well, now illegal aliens be counted on the census. This is about millions of people coming to this country, being counted in the census in these liberal cities, which equals more seats in the House for the Democrats, which equals more electoral votes, which equals power. And after a while, millions of these people will get amnesty, and they'll become U.S. citizens. They can vote, but until they vote, the electoral count. The census count's huge. The more why do you think the Dems want them counted? Because it's going to be more seats in the House for them, and they take control of the government. The Dems have got a smart long-term plan, and they're playing it out. And I've talked to several Republican congressmen saying, you guys better get your act together. In 20 years, you'll never win another election. So this is about power and politics over public safety and national security. They care more about their future in politics, these people in Congress, than they do about securing our border, protecting Americans. It's a sad day, but there's no other explanation why they want to push for open borders and bring more people in this country. It's about future power.
Now let's talk about the people who can now not be picked up by your former agency, ICE, or who, if they are picked up, are immediately released. I think you've been quoted somewhere as saying that 95% of the people who would have been picked up just 6 months or a year ago and deported are now going to be these are criminals. These aren't people with civil violations for coming across the border. These are people who have committed crimes, and in many cases, violent crimes. They're just being let go. Well, what percentage is it? Really, 95% of the
Absolutely. It's between 90 and 95% of all ICE targets are now off the table and being protected by the Biden administration. And he says they only care about significant public safety threats. In the same breath, he says DUI is under public safety. Are you kidding me? over 10,000 Americans lose their lives every year from DUI. And go talk to Angel mom and dad that I've talked to. There's hundreds of them out there whose children were killed by an illegal alien who was drunk driving. If drunk driving is not a public safety issue, then you know what? Then take all the DUI laws off the books. Stop locking people up for it. Stop arresting people for it. Because Joe Biden just said it's not a public safety issue. And a lot of the crimes are off the table: burglary, robbery, theft, assault. DUIs, these are all off the table. And, the Democrats keep saying, for the last 4 years under Trump that, ICE needs to concentrate on criminals. ICE needs to concentrate on criminals. At the same time, they're locking ICE out of jails, and they're letting 95% of the criminals off the hook now. And even Joe Biden said the other day, sexual predators are still a priority. Okay. But in the sanctuary cities of New York, Chicago, LA, Washington, just about all Washington State, just about all of California, and Boston, all these major cities are sanctuary cities. So even though they're a priority, according to Joe Biden, ICE still isn't going to get them out of jail because these jails don't accept detainers. They don't work with ICE. So it's a false narrative to say ICE is still going to target sexual predators, because what he didn't do is outlaw the sanctuary cities who refuse to accept detainers for anybody. So sexual predators will be walking out of jails in sanctuary cities just like they've always been in the last 4 years. So this false narrative that, ICE is going to concentrate on the worst of the worst, it's a bunch of crap. It's a false narrative because sanctuary cities are still going to refuse to work with ICE, which means they're not going to get their hands on them. It's even worse than people think when you actually look at how ICE works and what's going on right now.
We're talking to Tom Homan, the former ICE acting director, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. The other thing is, too, is say you bring a sexual predator into court. He's got a public defender. Again, he's not paying for his own lawyer. And the guy says to the liberal judge, who's as liberal as the public defender, and now in many cases, the prosecutor is also part of the cabal to help illegal aliens despite their crimes. They say, well, Your Honor, if we find this poor young man guilty of committing a crime of a sexual nature, he'll be deported. So shouldn't he be allowed to plea bargain it down to disorderly conduct? That happens by the tens of thousands every day in United States courts already. Even under Trump it did, didn't it, Tom Homan?
Yeah, it's happened a lot. And what the favorite thing they do is, a lot of these crimes, you got to be sentenced to a year or more. And I've seen so many judges say, okay, I'm going to sentence you to 360 days, just short of a year. So I just can't touch them. So it's crazy. And look, understand this: ICE isn't looking for illegal aliens anymore. It is no longer illegal to be here illegally. So the message Joe Biden has sent to the rest of the world is, if you're lucky enough to get by the Border Patrol, you're home free. Because unless you commit an aggravated felony and get convicted of it, the few felonies that left on the table, you're home free. No one's looking for you. You're no longer a priority. What kind of message does that send to the rest of the world? I mean, we're the greatest country on earth, and if you can get by the Border Patrol, and let me add this: you can even be arrested by the Border Patrol and asked to see a judge and get released on OR recognizance. As long as you are not convicted of an aggravated felony, you're home free. You're home free. So, illegal aliens across the country, they can rest and relax because ICE is not looking for you.
And don't you think that the fact that Trump and the administration cut down on the number of illegal border crossings, don't you think that's a large part of the reason why he got such a bigger proportion of Hispanic votes and black votes in the last election? Because there wasn't this influx of people competing for the jobs on the low end of the economic scale. And there was less, and most of the crimes that illegal aliens commit are committed against people who don't have as much money, who are living in the same neighborhoods as the illegal aliens. And I think, don't you think that the Hispanics and black, mainly predominantly Democrat voting populations appreciated what he did and would support
Absolutely. A lot of people spent years going through the legal system, spent years waiting in line, doing things the right way. And you're right. Even the black Americans, under Trump, let me give you for instance, we shut down a meatpacking plant in Chicago, and we created, and when the people were arrested and removed, there was over 100 openings. And guess who took those openings? Black Americans in those neighborhoods took those openings. So, President Trump, like him or love him, he did the right thing for this country. He believed our country had a right to be sovereign. We had the right to protect our borders. And that's the argument I give to every time I testify in the Hill. It's like, well, listen, guys, what is the downside of a secure border? Please explain to me. What's the downside on less illegal immigration? What's the downside on less illegal drugs coming in? What's the downside on taking millions of dollars out of cartels' hands? What's the downside that 31% of women that make that journey will not get raped? What's the downside in children not dying? Explain to me the downside. There is no downside. It's all about future politics and future power. It's all about having cheap labor in this country. It's ridiculous that I don't care if Republican, Democrat, or Independent. Why don't you want to know who comes across that border? Because because what's going to happen right now? The border surge has already started. Like I said, 4,000 a day. That's well over a million a year. But once Mexico says we're no longer stop Title 42, we're not going to take these people back. No more Title 42 for the United States. The border is going to be in a massive surge. The Border Patrol is going to be overwhelmed. Like the last surge, 50% of the Border Patrol is no longer on the line. It's a humanitarian crisis because they're changing diapers, making baby formula, making hospital runs. Let me tell you something. Humanitarian crisis create a national security crisis because during the last surge, when half the Border Patrol is no longer on the line, over 60,000 Americans died from opioid overdoses that came across that border because the Border Patrol the border was very vulnerable. Also, if you're somebody in this country who wants to come here and blow something up, it's hard to get a plane ticket anymore because all the database checks. It's hard to get a visa anymore because the visa security program.
Now,
if you want to come to this country,
Iranians,
you're going across the border.
Iranians are just walking across the southern border. I read now. They're just, they're just coming across, and we don't know who these people are. They have no background. What about COVID-19? I mean, here's Biden threatening to shut down air traffic, which is totally unconstitutional between the rest of the country and the Sunshine State of Florida, because he doesn't like people enjoying themselves and showing that there's no need for a lockdown. So he's going to shut down traffic to Florida, or threatening to, or his administration is, but yet they're letting these people cross the border who don't speak English, who have no job prospects, who are going to be welfare dependent. And a lot of them, a huge percentage, are going to test positive for COVID-19. Again, Tom Homan, how does this make any sense?
Well, you can't say they're going to test positive because they're not being tested, right? They're not even being tested. Think about that for a moment. These people are crossing the border illegally and they're not being tested, but still being released in our communities. That is just ridiculous. I mean, at least they're tested. We will know what to do with them. But and let me put it this way. Let's say we test them. Let's say they're positive. What are we going to do with them? You're going to take them to Border Patrol station, infect the rest of the station, Border Patrol agents, and the hundreds of aliens already are being held there. You're going to put them in an ICE facility to infect the rest of that facility? No. The President Trump had the right idea. You stay south. This country don't have to accept you. We got a pandemic going on. We remain in Mexico works. Let you wait there for your hearing. It was a great program President Trump had. Joe Biden's tearing it down for no reason other than they cannot match his success. They're trying to story his legacy because they'll never match it. No president has been able to achieve the success on the border that President Trump has. I've worked for 6 of them, starting with Ronald Reagan. No one has done more to secure our border than President Trump, and Joe Biden knows he cannot match that.
Tom Homan, former acting director of Immigration and Customs Enforcement, we really appreciate you being with us. Hope you'll be on again as this nightmare unfolds, and maybe something can be done. I hope, certainly. Tom Homan, thank you very much. I've been on Balance 7 for 2 weeks now, and I can't believe my energy. I've been feeling so good that some days I go for 3 bike rides. Now you ask, what is Balance 7? Balance 7 is a clear mineral liquid you take 3 times a day to break down the acid in your body. You feel better, and I personally have been sleeping better. It also reduces acid reflux and heartburn. Often I'm asked to try products, and I can be very skeptical of the claims, but with Balance 7, it was all 100% true. With Balance 7, I don't feel my energy starting to flag as the day wears on. By allowing me to sleep better at night, I have more mental clarity during the day. Balance 7 is a highly alkalizing concentrate. That means it reduces the acids that have built up in your body over time. All you do is drink a small shot of the liquid 3 times a day, and you will feel the difference. Balance 7 is made of safe, all-natural ingredients. If you suffer from heartburn, acid reflux, or sleep issues, give Balance 7 a try. Balance 7 is made in America and has sold over 6 million units worldwide. Order any of the 1 month supply and put in code word Howie. You'll save $10 and get free shipping. That's balance7, the number 7.com. It really will make you feel better. Code word Howie. I'm Howie Carr.
He's the maestro of microaggression. He's Howie Carr.
This hour of the